Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wrestling aficionados of all ages, welcome to the first episode of the newest, the most electrifying, jaw-dropping and no-holds-barred wrestling podcast on the planet. Mark out of 10. Where passion meets punditry, where fanhood transforms into fiery opinions, and where the squared circle's dissected like never before. We're not just a podcast, we're a wrestling revolution. Grab a steel chair, take a deep breath, and get ready to mark out like never before, because we're your hosts, Shields and Hoxie, laying the smackdown on all things wrestling. So Hoxie, I've got one question for you. Are you ready?
I said, are you ready?
It had to be done, right? Welcome everybody, first ever episode of the Mark Out of 10 podcast. Hope you're all well. Hoxie.
I am, as the kids say, I'm gassed up for this, mate. I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for a long time, right?
We have, yeah.
Really long time. So and the planets and the moons and everything's aligned, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So before we get started into telling us what we're doing today, let's talk about the premise of it, why we're doing this, where we all started from, what we're doing, basically.
Yeah, mate, mark out of 10. It's basically... We always talk, wrestling fans are obsessed with what is the best, what is the worst, who's the best, who's the worst, like ABC, 1, 2, 3, Mount Rushmore, all that sort of stuff. So Mark Out of 10 is basically the top 10 of stuff within wrestling. Top 10, whatever, I don't know, we'll go through top 10 theme music. This is all opinion based, by the way, so it's not like, this is just me and you. It's almost going head to head really with discussion and debate, because we have these debates quite often, right? Day to day, we have discussions on stream, we have discussions in person, we have discussions over WhatsApp about all this sort of stuff. So top 10 wrestling themes, top 10 tag teams, top 10 whatever, pay-per-views, whatever. So yeah, I'm really excited for this, mate. I'm very excited for this.
It's going to be good. So me and Hoxie, we're both very busy people, so we can't actually settle on how often we're going to do this, but we're going to do as often as we can. So it's going to be released on YouTube primarily, but it's going to be on all your favourite podcast type things, so Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. So we'll get on absolutely everything we can. As Hoxie says, this has been sort of... The seed was planted many moons ago. We were doing a watch along on Hoxie's stream, and I can't even remember what wrestling event it was. It must have been a Royal Rumble or something, because that's what we do.
It's got to have been. Yeah.
And, and we were WhatsApping each other and saying, right, this is what we should do. And literally 18 months later, here we are. We're doing the very first one. As Hoxie said, it is all
nice and quick. Yeah,
exactly.
There's a lot of planning and preparation going to these podcasts, right?
Yeah, you should see my notes. There's definitely no planning and preparation going. So basically, as Hoxie says, it is all opinion based. So our top 10 lists, we have a particular topic area, but we don't have anything in terms of any major ways of narrowing it down. So as long as you can justify why you're putting them on the list, this is where the debate and communication comes from.
So it might be a mixture of like actual factual justification with some of this stuff. It might be, I think this because my opinion is more than yours. So it could be, oh my god, I love this when I was a kid. It could be, oh my god, I love this now. It could be, I hated this as a kid. I hate this now. So there's loads of different ways in which we can justify things, right? And we do have, we're not, I mean, background wise, we've been wrestling fans forever. I can remember I was off ill from school. I had my tonsils taken out when I was like 5 or 6 or something crazy like that. And I can remember my next door neighbour coming around with, it was SummerSlam 1990, 1991. Oh my God, so bad. Hulk Hogan versus The Ultimate Warrior. I can remember him bringing the tape round for me to watch. And that was when I first watched wrestling. I can remember it. It's weird. I can't remember all the details, but I can remember it happening. So strange. We've been wrestling fans forever. John?
Yeah, absolutely. I sort of, you have the usual, right? You have like Hulkamania running wild. You have Undertaker scaring the crap out of you when he first comes out. But I remember my first sort of real life experience was at the town hall in my local town, and I saw Big Daddy for the first time, Shirley Crabtree, and he was an absolute fucking monster. It was insane. So he scared the crap out of me just because he was. And
he was probably deeper than he was tall. To be fair, old Shirley.
Yeah, but
He's
remember,
a big old lad, right?
Yeah, but remember, I wasn't always 6'3" when I was a child, Hoxie. It's like he was a big man compared to me. It was like
You're Scottish, mate. You were born at 5 foot. I'm sure of it.
That's right, yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, as Hoxie says, we've both been fans since we can remember. So yeah, so like I say, it's going to be a top 10 list, but we're going to talk about specific things like that's happening in the wrestling business at the moment. So the major things just that's happening through the dirt sheets. Not Meltzer though, fuck Meltzer.
Meltzer can get in the bin.
Yeah,
Hashtag
absolutely.
fuck Dave Meltzer.
But I think we'll just go straight into the biggest bit of wrestling news. I think Hoxie that's been released this week is Sting has announced that he is going to retire next year.
It's crazy, right? We sort of with Sting, we sort of take. It's going to sound really strange. We sort of take it for granted. We take him for granted. We take the Sting, quote unquote, gimmick or character for granted. He's been around for so long, you kind of forget how long it is.
Yep.
I think it's 35 years.
Oh, 100%.
36 years, maybe.
Yeah.
I should have. There we go. Amazing research. It's got to be 35, 36 years ago. Sting was introduced onto. It would have been TBS. It would have been. Mm-hmm. It would have been Jim Crockett Promotions, right? So
it's got to be.
You look at all of the stuff that this guy has done throughout his career. Like you had like the Surfer Sting. You know what I mean? That the big baby face. You had that amazing moment with Flair. That sort of the quote unquote passing of the torch for this guy. That match, that Clash of the Champions match with Ric Flair, which was just incredible. You go all the way through with. Obviously into the WCW years, and you have these amazing feuds with like Vader and like Cactus Jack and stuff like back in the day, and then you get to obviously the Crow Sting character, which is sort of where we are today, really to a certain degree. Like this guy has done a lot of stuff in wrestling, a lot of stuff that we sort of don't realise and we sort of take for granted. The changes
on the conversation of the GOAT, right? He's got to be in that conversation.
He's got to. We might have this conversation, at some point in a future podcast, mate. You know what I mean? In having this conversation about these guys who've sort of done a lot for the business and been around for a long time, and just that. I mean, for a start, the loyalty that he had with his career, like not quote unquote jumping ship when the chance arose. Like it's this guy's up there. He's got to be in that conversation. He really has.
It's like I've got a few questions I'm going to ask you about this, right? Okay, so bear with me. But I think out of all the gimmicks you've mentioned, there's one that you didn't, and that was his Joker gimmick in TNA.
Yeah.
Insane, so good. And I think what he
slept on, right?
100%.
Slept on big time.
I think what he doesn't get credit for, and this is where the parallel with Taker comes in, and this is one of the questions I'll ask you in a wee second, is he had the ability to identify when he had to change his gimmick. You know, Taker did it as well. You know, he went from like the old school Western Undertaker to like the Ministry to
the Dark Ministry,
etc. It's exactly the same with Sting. Do you think that's the biggest regret in wrestling, the fact that we didn't see a Sting and Taker feud because he was so loyal to WCW?
Yeah, I so it's sort of like a Batman and a Joker kind of situation, I think, with Taker and Sting. They had to be. They were in different places, but at the same time, they were like the stalwart. It's probably the best way to describe it. They were that foundation, that cornerstone. Yeah, that cornerstone of what that company meant at that specific time. These guys who have been through it all. They've worked through like injury. They worked through when the business was good, when the business was bad. They were always a constant with that, and I think that's just a testament to both guys. But it is a shame we didn't get to see them. I had a great booking idea to end both of their careers, but it's gone way longer than it should have. I wanted them to be at WrestleMania and have the Phenom versus, like, you know what I mean, that sort of what was it, that fucking oh my god, I can't remember it. Oh my days, I'm having a nightmare. That sort of
I'll edit it out, it's fine.
yeah, it's fine. We had like the Undertaker as the Phenom, and then we had the Stinger as like that sort of constant guy that he'd never lose, he'd never been beaten. They could have wrestled together at WrestleMania and just had this crazy match, and then both of them just like, but back in the day when he used to have the lightning bolt used to come down and like hit the coffin, the casket or whatever on the, just have those guys like wrestling somewhere, fighting somewhere or whatever. The lightning bolt comes down, bang, and they both just disappear, and that's it. That's all we ever see. We have like that crazy sort of like, you know what I mean? Just that like, oh my god, like holy shit, where's they gone? Like you know what I mean? That would be the end of both of their careers. Just like what is it? The immovable object makes the sub of a force, and just they collide. No one is going to back down. No one's going to lose. No one's going to win. They're just going to fight, and in the end, it's just gone into the abyss. What happened? We don't know. It's the way it ended. Yeah. I'd love that. I love that. For me, that was the way they should have done it.
That would have been a great show. I think the issue was Vince was in charge of booking, and he would never have booked Sting to go over Taker. It would never have happened.
The Immortal Sting. That's the word I was looking for, mate. The Immortal Sting.
Right,
the Phenom versus the Immortal would have been incredible.
That would have been great.
Incredible.
Right, so
are we PG? Are we PG-14? I've just dropped a couple of swear words. I don't even know where we're going.
I'll have a beat machine somewhere. It'll be fine.
Good man.
If you're offended, you can fuck off. Right. So I was thinking this in the car. Right. Is there anybody on current TV, right, who's appeared on the 4 major like US shows: WWE, WCW, Impact, and AEW? I don't think there is. It's only Sting.
Yeah.
There's got to be, right?
William Regal.
Regal's never been.
William Regal didn't do TNA. No, he never done TNA, did he?
No.
Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett. It's Jeff Jarrett then. Yeah, that's fine. I couldn't think of anybody else. See, that's
you could go one further. Really, Jerry Lynn would have been an ECW as well, so he would have done a lot.
But Jerry Lynn didn't wrestle in AEW because he's not medically cleared. RVD, did he ever do WCW?
RVD probably would have done a WCW. Yes.
So potentially there.
Okay.
Right now we don't have an email address, but if you are on our YouTube channel, which again we don't know what the YouTube channel is, there'll probably be an edit at the end of this telling you all that information. Let us know in the comments or email us with if you can think of anybody else. Okay, final
Rob
question.
Van Dam wrestled on WC Worldwide in 1993. He wrestled Vinny Vegas. There we go. He wrestled Kevin Nash, and he had a match with Paul Orndorff as well. There we go.
Hardys, did they ever wrestle WCW?
Oh, I don't know. I think they started as like, they were very young. They were like 14, 15, weren't they? Yeah. They wrestled underage for enhancement talent in the WWF, didn't they? So if they did go to WCW or do anything to WCW, I probably wouldn't imagine.
Fair dues. Yeah. Final question related to Sting.
Yep.
Who's the final match? Who's going to retire him?
Oh, there's two ways. If I had the pencil, right? So if I was booking this, you're either going to go a guy who has been a big part of his career all the way through his life, or you're going to have him passing the torch onto somebody. It would make perfect sense for it to be Darby, for it to be Darby Allin. The issue we have there is one of them will have to turn heel. I can't see Sting going out of the business and ending his career as a heel. And Darby Allin couldn't be a credible heel against Sting. I don't think. He would need people around him. He would need that. He would need the sort of the shithouse stable with him to sort of be horrible. And Darby Allin I think he's a all-round face. I think it's really difficult. I could see somebody like Jeff Jarrett, maybe. Something along those lines. I don't know. It's difficult, but if it was me, I would do something along the lines of Darby Allin, or even if he has a tag match with Darby. I know we've seen the tag match with Darby Allin a couple of times. I saw it at Wembley, just FYI. Sorry, John.
Fuck you.
Like something along those lines to sort of pass the torch, but you could argue it's already been done. I don't know. Darby Allin's probably a good shout, but it just depends how they go about doing it, because you need to boo and you need to cheer, right? Yeah, but there needs to be a boo, mate. We can't just have face versus face. There's no money there, baby. There's no where's the money? There's no money. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. But Darby Allin would make sense. It's just how they do it, in my opinion. What about you? What you say? What say you?
I think my natural inclination has got to be Darby. Yeah, I just can't see past it just now. I just don't know if I'm blinkered with that. But yeah, I think it's in my opinion, it's got to be Darby. I think it, and this is the big if it's booked correctly, it could work. But if Tony Khan's in charge of booking them, we're fucked. let's call a spade a spade. You know, it's
That is a very big discussion for another day, by the way. That's very big discussion for another day.
Podcast.
It's probably a two-parter, mate. I don't know. We don't know how long these podcasts are going to be, by the way. They could be half an hour. They could be 4 hours. We don't know. But
if it's 4 hours, I will cut them in half. So
yeah. It's one of those, mate. I agree. It's same with anything to do with wrestling. It's how it's booked. It's how the story's going to pan out. But it's got to be
interesting. So there's obviously other little bits and pieces in terms of the wrestling business, like Logan Paul challenging Rey Mysterio for the US title, etc. But we're not going to go into that. Sting was the big one, I think, in my opinion. I'm
99.9% sure Logan Paul's promo obviously was written for him, but the content and the delivery was very good. Calling out Roman Reigns and talking about LA Knight and this, that, and the other. I thought that was a very, very good promo from what I've heard. I haven't seen the whole thing, the snippets and the bits that I've seen. Very good. I rate Logan Paul. Again, we've had this conversation before, right? We've had this conversation
another
before.
Podcast right here, but Logan Paul is in my opinion, the second best person to take wrestling other than Kurt Angle. Quickest. Insane. And
that is one thing we definitely do agree on. There's many things we don't, so stick around. We're gonna go through a lot of stuff within the next X amount of time, and I guarantee we're going to have some discussions about this. But we definitely do agree on the Logan Paul Kurt Angle.
100%. Yeah. Okay, so top 10, mark out of 10. This is what it's all about. We list the top 10 of a certain criteria, and I think the most sensible thing for us to do, and we discussed this at length, was the top 10 best WWE/WWF champions. Okay, doesn't include anything outside. Time. Doesn't include anything outside of the World Wrestling Federation, and this goes right back to the inception, like WWF and before. Yeah, so
anything McMahon's name has been put on, basically.
Pretty much.
Probably the easiest way to describe it, right?
That's a good shout. Yeah. This doesn't include like the ECW title that came in, because that's just garbage. Like, forget it. But yeah, so. We're going to go through our top 10. I've put mine in my order, so it's going to be interesting. I think you've done the same, Hoxie, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. From 10 to 1 in my preference. Lots and lots of different things. I have rewritten this probably about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, and that's today.
We started sort of thinking about this a little while ago, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. And then I'd think of something else. I'll be like, oh, shit, let me just move that there. Let me just put that here. But I think I'm settled. There will be discussion about this, no doubt, even after the podcast goes out, which we're more than open to. You guys can agree. You guys can disagree. You guys can shit on us. Guys can do whatever you want to do. This is what I'm feeling right now at this very moment in time.
That's what I feel in my wallet. Right, well, to quote a great Australian, let's crack straight into it, right?
Right into it.
Your number 10, Hoxie, who's your number 10 best WWE champions of all time?
Okay, so this might be a bit of a shock to you. It might be a bit of a shock to a couple of people who are listening, or lots of people who are listening. But my number 10 greatest WWE champion of all time is Eddie Guerrero. Okay. Now, this is it's not necessarily for how many times he held the title, how long he held the title, how much money he drew. Like, you know what I mean, how many pay-per-views he main evented. Nothing to do with that. This is all to do with the impact in which Eddie Guerrero had on, like, the wrestling fan, the wrestling population, but also the actual wrestling business itself. You had a guy who was always going to be pushed down. He's always going to be squashed down because of his size, because of his weight. Obviously, things like that changed a little bit later on with how much juice this guy was on. But taking everything aside, allegedly, this guy changed the business for everybody. I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use this term anyway. He paved the way for basically the last 20 years, or whatever it is. You mean 15, 20 years of wrestlers and guys, those smaller guys who came throughout the business. You Daniel Bryans of the world, for example. I genuinely don't think there would have been a Daniel Bryan champion, WWF champion, WWE World Heavyweight champion, whatever. I don't think somebody like Daniel Bryan would have won the title if it wasn't for somebody like an Eddie Guerrero in that conversation. He changed the business, that work ethic, that character, just the way he wrestled like a guy who was bigger than him. And I'm not one of these guys who thinks everybody should be a 7 foot tall roid head. Like, I'm not that guy at all. You know what I mean? I appreciate wrestling. I genuinely think this guy changed the business for the better, and for that reason, he had to make it onto my top 10. There's a bit of a discussion about this maybe later on in my list. I'm not giving anything away, but for what he meant to the business and what he did, Eddie Guerrero has sneaked into number 10 for me, just because of the impact he had.
I think it's a legitimate shout, and the Guerrero family is like synonymous with wrestling, right? I mean, it makes sense. To be honest, Eddie's not on my list, but Eddie was. He was
in the conversation.
Yeah, of course, yeah, he had to be
under consideration. There we go.
He had to. He had to be. I mean,
that's a T-shirt, mate. That's a fucking T-shirt straight away. We've been going for 20 minutes. That's a T-shirt. I'm telling you. Hashtag under consideration. Let's go.
Consideration. I love it. Okay, interesting. It's a solid start from you. For me, I've went old school, and I know we said that, length of title reigns, etc., is it's not that important, but
it can be important. That's the thing. So we'll reiterate for this.
100%. And
for me, justification could be anything you want it to be. It's your opinion, right?
For me, this guy, because of the length of his reign, had to be on the list, and it's got to be Bruno Sammartino. For me, he had an 8-year reign as champ.
Ridiculous, right?
Mental, and that was his first reign. Okay, so his second reign, I think it's only been beaten by 4 other people. It's like 1,200 odd days or something crazy like that. Yeah, so but his first one, 8-year reign, beaten by Ivan Koloff. And what I didn't realise was the reason why the title had to change hands is because he was knackered. He needed a break. That's the only reason they took the title off him. He dropped the title because he was tired, which is fucking insane, right? I think he is...
Think about that territory model, though, back then, though, mate. Like, we need to have a conversation about... Not a conversation, but bring that into consideration. Like, it wasn't, okay, you're the WWE champion and you wrestle on a WWE show, you might do a pay-per-view or a weekly show. These guys were doing it sometimes, like, 9 times a week.
It's insane, right?
Like they would wrestle like 2 shows on a weekend, like each day. It's crazy. Sorry, mate. Go on.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, what was also crazy, and he cracked it in New York, in terms of, think of this, there's still a record, I think, in Madison Square Gardens, 187 sellouts as a main event attraction. 187 in Madison Square Gardens. Yeah. And just that stat alone for me is why he should be on the list, and he should be in the conversation as being one of the greatest of all times. What I also like about Bruno is the fact that he got like the working class Joe in off the streets. Like he made them believe. He did. It's fact. It's there, and You know, he had his issues with Vince, but I think it's testament to Triple H. Yeah, he recognised the impact that Bruno had on the business, and that's why he brought him back in, because he deserved that Hall of Fame spot, right? Now, people talk shit about the WWE Hall of Fame, etc., right? And you can like it, you can not like it, whatever. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but for it to be a legitimate Hall of Fame, he had to be in it, and I think Triple H did the absolute right thing. So for me, Bruno is in top 10. He probably could be higher, but I think my justifications for other ones are just slightly stronger than Bruno's, I think.
Finally stronger. Yeah. Yeah, I'm there with you, mate. I'm happy with that.
Cool.
It's a good start. Great start.
Number
Great
9.
justification. Some good factoids, mate. Sorry, not factoids, some good facts. Love that.
Number 9 for me. So what we're going to do is Hoxie will go, then I'll go, and then I'll take 2, and then Hoxie will take 2, and then we'll go up. Keep on going that way. So that's going to be the way it works. So number 9 for me is the beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Now, it's nothing to do with the amount of reigns he has, but if we think about it just now, he is the last legitimate sort of badass, like the old school badass, the guy that would punch you in the face if you didn't shake his hand properly, right? That's what I'm thinking.
I think he would eat your face off rather than punch you.
Well, okay, yeah. I was trying to be PG, but that's fine. I think, as I say, he's sort of the last legitimate badass, but at the same time, he is someone that I think you could pick him up and put him in any era, and he would be an absolute superstar. For such a big guy, he's quick, he's obviously strong, he doesn't need to say anything, he just needs to look at you and you crap yourself. You know, it's like, it's an old school wrestler, it's an old school heel. And even now, his babyface work as Cowboy Brock is one of the best things we've seen from Brock Lesnar without having Heyman as the mouthpiece. I just think, Brock's got to be in there as one of the best of all time, to be honest. I think he's got that superstar charisma and appeal to a wider audience as well.
Yeah. Now, without giving too much away, I wrestled... Forgive the pun. I wrestled with Brock Lesnar being on my list for a long time.
Okay.
And he was so close, mate. He was probably, if there was a number 11, he'd be number 11. Legit. Like, I was having this discussion, this internal monologue with myself, like, this guy is amazing. Like, to do what he did as well, to sort of come from where he came from, just like an absolute machine, to be one of the youngest WWE Champions ever as well.
Yep.
He came in just absolutely run amok, and then he left and missed out on the NFL Cup with the Vikings, like by the tiniest of margins, like the last guy cut. UFC, smashing people up, heavyweight champion in the UFC. Mm-hmm. Like, this guy's you sent me that TikTok the other day, like, take me to your leader sort of thing, and you would take him to Brock Lesnar. Like, it's not really that far from the truth. He's like the alpha male of this world, really. He's just incredible. And I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. You just missed out on mine. Number 9 on yours. Right?
I'm assuming Bruno wasn't on your list.
We'll see, right?
Okay, fair it is. Okay.
See what happens.
Okay, Hoxie, over to you, number 9.
So number 9 for me, who I wrestled with. So this, I don't know if you found with this list, sort of the top few were sort of a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. The bottom few were a little bit easier, but in the middle, it's like, oh my god, like where does this go? It's like a bit of a mush. Yeah, it's crazy. Number 9 for me is The Undertaker. We had this discussion. I sort of gave a little bit away, the old Easter egg earlier on. We were having this discussion about him and Sting. Like, this guy was a lifer with the company when he finally got there. You know what I mean? And he was with the WWE, WWF when times were good, when times were bad. He was always that constant there. He never. You look at his title runs and the amount of titles you'd think he would have more. You'd think he'd have a longer amount of time. You'd think he'd be he'd have more titles. I think it was three WWF championships, 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
Because he was sort of the world heavyweight champion later on.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't qualify to a certain degree with this. So this guy was there. He had, and this is common knowledge. You listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews. He had like a name your price offer from WCW, like in like 97, 98. Like, we'll do whatever you want to do. Here's the checkbook. He was like, no, you're okay. And he stuck there through thick and thin, and knew that Vince would pull the nose up on the company, which obviously inevitably happened. Some of the matches that he had, either with his title runs, or when he was working with the guys who were the champion. And I know we're talking about champions, but you have to make guys as well. You know what I mean? You have to be there, and you have to be present, and you have to have good matches, whether you have the title or you're chasing the title. For me, The Undertaker was, and probably still is, the ultimate professional within the wrestling business. I don't think you can have any other conversation about who the guy was. You hear the stories about the wrestlers' court, and the Undertaker was the judge, the jury, and sometimes the executioner with what was going on. Like, everybody knew that he was the guy. He was a badass. He was a good man. He was a good person. He was a professional. He was a great champion, and he was loyal. And I think in the wrestling business, loyalty is missed out a lot. And I think he had all of that in abundance. So for me, he had to be on my list. There is other people that were going to be in, obviously higher than him, hence why he's number 9. But there's no way I could let him off that list at all. So for me, number 9, Undertaker.
Interesting. Yeah, he was 4 times WWE Champion, 3 times World Heavyweight Champion. So yeah, but yeah, it's a lock in. I think anyone's top 10. It has to be, and yeah. Okay, fair dues. Number 8 for Mr. Hawks.
Number 8 for me, and this was difficult. So for me, number 8 is Triple H. Okay, I'm not the biggest, you would say, Triple H mark or Triple H fan or whatever, however you want to say it. But when you look at what he did, when he did it, Triple H has to be on this conversation. Triple H gets a load of shit from a lot of wrestling fans for, he married Steph, married the boss's daughter. That's why he did what he did, and ABC, 1, 2, 3, whatever. I couldn't think of anything more bullshit than that. So he was the champion when you had The Rock was injured. You had Stone Cold was injured, or out of the business. You had all these guys who were doing other things or who weren't there, and they gave him the ball and he ran with it, and he was quite possibly one of the best wrestling heels probably ever. He has to be in that conversation. Yeah. The stuff that he did, the runs that he had as that champion, I just think were absolutely incredible, and he had to make it on the list. He's what, 14, 15 time champion. This is the stuff that I didn't look at, by the way. So I done sort of research and looked at stuff, but I didn't look at the numbers, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a quick look.
I'll just know as well for you.
And just see what's going on. So this guy was incredible. The runs that he had as that sort of the early 2000s sort of title runs as the world champion, just incredible. That undisputed champion, if that makes sense. And to have that match after WrestleMania 18 with Hulk Hogan and sort of put that guy over. Was it Backlash? Mm-hmm. It was the pay-per-view after, wasn't it?
Yep.
To know to do business at the right time and know what he had to do and drop that title. For me, a champion is as much as what you do with the title as well as how you go into it and how you come out of it as well. So I just think, Triple H is slept on a lot. and I think that the championship runs that he had were very underrated. He made a lot of guys, he made a lot of money, and he carried the company when a lot of the people who would have been the champion weren't there, and he still sort of made pay-per-view buys and sold houses. I just think his heel run was incredible. Great worker, proper seated in that old school mentality, able to tell a story, able to sort of have that hybrid style of sort of what wrestlers or wrestling fans expect to have. Even back then, it was very different. And I just think he slept on a lot. Like, I'm not a massive fan. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, like I love Triple H, like whatever. But for me, he has to make it on this list. Has to.
I love the justification, Hoxie. Excellent. Nice. Interesting. Okay, man number 8. By the way, Triple H was a 9 times WWF WWE champion. He was 5 times World Heavyweight champion, so it's 14. Yeah. 14, there you go. It's there or thereabouts. Knew I was close to the title reigns. There we go. Okay, for me, number 8 is, I've mentioned him already when we were talking about Logan Paul, it's Kurt Angle. For me, has to be on any top 10 list in terms of any WWE superstar that's the best ever, simply because he is simply the quickest to learn the business. Not how to wrestle, because he knows how to wrestle. Yeah, he's a proper shoot badass, but I've never seen anybody come into it and like just learn psychology, learn how to work the crowd. Just, you know, he... to be fair, thinking about it now, he probably should be higher on my list, but he's just insane. He was a great heel, like an awesome heel with 3 eyes, intensity, integrity, and intelligence. Just fucking annoyed the crowd to no end. It annoyed me when I was watching
heat, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it's heat, and it's not cheap heat. It's not go away heat. It's just good old fashioned heat. I
fucking hate you. Get off my telly. I hate you. Leave me alone. Okay.
But he was a great heel, but he was also an awesome babyface, especially at the time when like Austin turned heel with the invasion angle, and I always remember it like when he gets the pile driver on the concrete from Austin, and he gets taken away, and he comes back out with the neck brace, and you know the pop he gets when he rips the neck brace off, and it's just the absolute intensity in his eyes was just insane. But his other babyface moments, like playing the guitar or the ukulele with Stone Cold with the little cowboy hat, and you know the milk
Jimmy Crackhorn.
Oh my god, it's just so good. It's like it's the fact. It's still one of the greatest stories I've heard. This is a testament to how like hard he is, how much of a badass he is. It's like a shoot wrestling with Brock Lesnar, and he beats Brock. You know, it's like everybody goes on about how, you know, in terms of amateur wrestling, Brock is awesome. But Kurt Angle won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. In case you didn't know.
Neck. Exactly, yeah.
You know, exactly. It's for me, he's he has to be a lock in anybody's top 10 conversation. He's just different gravy. And then obviously he had his well documented issues, you know, and he talks about it himself. But he goes to Impact as well. I know this is away from WWE, but some of the matches he had there, like AJ and with Samoa Joe, it goes to a different level again. The risks he took in TNA was insane. I just think it's an overall contributor to the business. I think
he probably didn't know what he was doing with those risks, but at least he took them anyway, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Who am I? Who are you? Where are we? Where am I on top of the cage right now? I thought I was on the top rope. Oh shit, okay.
Oh, why am I in this barn?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes, absolutely. So Kurt Angle is my number 8.
Now I'm gonna. This is where we're gonna disagree. This is where the first disagreement is going to happen on the Mark Out of 10 podcast. Okay. Mm-hmm. I take all of your justification there, and I agree with every single bit of what you've just said. Uh-huh. But I don't see how that relates to him being a champion.
He had won the same number of WWF WWE champions as Undertaker.
Yeah. So if we're going to look at the statistics, then that's fine. But I think he's one of the best to ever lace up a pair of boots ever.
Okay.
if we're talking about the top 10 wrestlers ever, he's probably going to be on this list. He's probably going to be on my list. But I don't think he's one of the best 10 champions ever. He probably done more when he wasn't a champion than when he was. And I think his runs were very short. They were very sweet. He never won a title at a WrestleMania. You know what I mean? He never had that big sort of moment as a champion. They were always sort of whatever they call them now, premium live event sort of pay-per-view things that he won at. John, honestly, I can't agree anymore that he's one of the best ever. He's in the Logan Paul conversation we had earlier on in terms of him winning, taking to the business. No one's ever done it like him. He's incredible. Some of the matches he's had. One of the best matches that I've ever seen him have, it was at SummerSlam 2002 with Rey Mysterio. You speak to anybody, any wrestling fan, lots of wrestling fans, they will have no idea what that match is at all. You go back and watch that match with him and Rey Mysterio, it's one of the best matches on a SummerSlam in history. It is incredible. He had the most amazing matches with everybody, but I don't think I was looking at him in terms of a champion, and he was one of the first off my list, in my opinion.
Oh, wow.
For me. Yeah. Like I was
interesting.
He was a champion. He was a great wrestler. He was a good champion. But for me, nowhere near the top 10, unfortunately.
Interesting. I suppose it's very similar to sort of my Eddie Guerrero. You know, it's a case of I think Eddie was great. As we're going back to your number 10 a little bit. It's like, I understand, like I agree with everything you said about Eddie, but you know, in terms of, you think about the little guy, and this leads on to my number 7. I think there were two little guys, and it's not Rey Mysterio, right? Two little guys that were better than Eddie Guerrero, and this was a coin flip to see who it was. And
I know where you're going to go. Go on.
It's basically two opposite ends of the spectrum here. It was between Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Okay.
And my number 7's Bret.
Okay. I knew exactly what you were going to say.
Did you?
Yeah. I even nearly said it, like, to try and say it at the same time as you. Okay.
Yeah, for me, Bret is like, he was the benchmark for the little guy. Well, alongside HBK, and I think Bret just pipped it. He didn't draw a lot of money, and we said this at the beginning. It's not to do with like how many titles you won. It's not about how much money you drew. He didn't draw a lot of money for WWE when he was champ, but he
did anybody back then.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point. He probably went to WCW as he was past his prime, I suppose you could say. I suppose that argument could be made to there, but yeah, he was just
reaching it. I think he was just reaching it.
You know,
I think in '97 he was at the top of his game.
Yeah,
and I think his mind went before his body went. If that makes sense, his mind, his passion and his mind for the business. Go on, sorry.
But but in terms of his work, you know, he could wrestle little guys, he could wrestle sort of medium talent, he could wrestle big guys, and he could make them look an absolute $1,000,000. He was just, he was, and again, very cliche, but he was the excellence of execution, right? He's best there is, the best there was, best there ever will be. The only reason I was slithering between him and HBK, and this is where it's really strange, is I feel that Bret's sort of attitude later on is sort of tarnishing him a little bit. Like, he's believing his own hype a little bit. Now, he was very good, that's why he's on my list. But, you know, it's to the point where it's like, right, we get it. Like, just stop. Whereas, like, HBK, I think HBK is sort of he's went in the opposite direction. He was an absolute scumbag, like, in terms of, like...
but that's what Jesus does for you, though, right?
But you know, as times went on, when he found Jesus, he sort of mellowed out a little bit. He's built a lot of bridges with Bret, with Taker, etc. You know, because it's well known that HBK was a pain in the ass to work with at the get go. But I think Bret now probably thinks himself... You put himself at number 1 on this list, Bret, let's be honest, right? But I think, again, Bret...
That's what makes a champion, mate. That's what makes a champion.
Yeah. Confidence breeds success and all that jazz. But, I think, like I say, Eddie's not on my list, but Bret is, and I think it was a toss-up. If I was to go between Eddie, Bret, or HBK, Eddie would be third. It would be always between those two. And I'm a huge HBK fan in terms of, the performer, but I think just overall in terms of best champs and who you want to represent at their peak when they're champ, I think Bret has got to be the guy, right? I don't think you could have relied on Shawn when he was at his
having his issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so that's my number 7. Over to you.
So,
I can't believe you didn't choose Kurt Angle, you absolute knob. What the fuck?
like I said, mate, if we're having a conversation about the top 10 best wrestlers ever,
100%.
Top 10 best pro wrestlers to ever do it, Kurt Angle is probably going to be on my list. In fact, he is going to be on my list. I think he's incredible. His body of work, yeah. When we're talking champions, what they did for the business as a whole, what they did for the sort of the world of wrestling, of pro wrestling, he's not on there for me. He's not on there for me. So, my number 7, and this was really tight. This was really, really tight between this guy and somebody else. For quite similar-ish reasons, really. Both sort of within the same kind of time frame, almost, if you want to sort of look at it like that. But my number 7 is Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, there we go.
The reason he's higher on the list than he is at your number 10 is for what he did in terms of the numbers. That's not just in terms of like how long he held the belt for, which is just an insane amount of time. Now, I know you can have the argument like there wasn't as many pay-per-views back then, there wasn't as many, like there wasn't a WrestleMania, like whatever. You can have that argument all day long. But I said earlier on when you were talking about Bruno, they wrestled like every night, sometimes twice on a Saturday and Sunday. You know what I mean? You said earlier on about the selling at the Madison Square Garden at MSG, like he was the everyman's champion. He brought people into wrestling who would never be there, like that. Like obviously, that Italian, that the northeastern sort of territory, that New York territory, with a lot of the Sicilians and the Italian sort of population that would come across. He probably made the WWF/WWF what it was just by him, being from Italy, but just by him, the way that he carried himself, the way that he was a champion. He was a champion every single second of every single day. That's what he was put on this earth to do. He's put on this earth to wrestle and to be a champion. And to be a champion doesn't mean you hold a belt and you have a title. A champion is being the way you live your life. Like, it was insane. Kayfabe was still a thing. It was still as real as it could possibly be to everybody back then, and he never ever let that slip. My favourite Sammartino story is years and years later. You okay?
Yeah.
What that noise was, and there was a noise in the background. My favourite Sammartino story is from years and years later. Chris Candido was the NWA World Champion, so this was way after the NWA was a thing. It was sort of in the 90s. It may have even been early 2000s. I don't know exactly when the story was, but Bruno Sammartino was in an airport, and Chris Candido went to the bathroom, went to the toilet when Sammartino was in there. Chris Candido shook his hand like, Mr. Sammartino, like, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a wrestler, and it's Chris Candido. I'm actually the NWA World Champion right now. And Sammartino said to me, he says, look, kid, like, be careful. Be careful for everybody. Be careful who you go in the ring with. Be careful with these promoters. All they want to do is hold you down and get that title off you. You got to be strong. You got to be tough in there. Literally calling it as a shoot in like whatever it was, year 2000. And I just think that's amazing. He would have been in his 70s at the time, probably.
Yeah.
He was still sort of keeping kayfabe for a start, still sort of living those sort of like those morals and that life as a traveling champion. I just think that's incredible, and for that, he has to be on that list. He's got to be higher than some of the other guys for me. He's got to be in that mix in the middle of the bag. Sammartino, absolute legend, absolute legend.
Okay, Hawksy, you're going on to your number 6.
So my number 6 is Bret Hart.
There we go.
We're really, really close. Bret Hart was 7 for you, right?
Yep.
So this is your number 7. So we mentioned about not drawing much money. He was a champion at the time where the business wasn't drawing any money. WCW and the WWF weren't drawing any money in his first run. Nowhere near that sort of money that they would be had before or have after. But this guy was just, like you say, you could put him in there with everybody, anyone and everybody, and he would have the best match. Like you talk about like guys like Diesel, like Kevin Nash. The best match Kevin Nash ever had in his life was with Bret Hart. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just he would go in there. It's a really famous match for him earlier on in his career was probably the mid to late 80s. Can you remember the guy Tom McGee? Remember that name?
I know the name.
But Tom McGee was meant to be the next coming of just the next biggest thing. He was bodybuilder. He could do flips and everything. He was a good-looking guy. Blah 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 blah. Couldn't work for shit. Couldn't wrestle his way out of a fucking wet paper bag. This guy was dreadful. But Vince McMahon put him in there with Bret, and Bret said, "Give me 3 moves. Give me 3-4 moves that you can do." He's like, "Okay, he said, just listen to me." And they had the best match of Tom McGee's career. I think he was around for probably 18 months. He had this guy is incredible. Bret Hart was unbelievable, and you had that period of time. I just touched on it quite quickly with Sammartino. It wasn't as much as it was, but that sort of belief and that living as a champion and you being a champion and sort of portraying that to your peers, portraying that to the fans, portraying it to whatever, that professional champion. Bret Hart was that in abundance, and he was incredible in the ring. He got, like I said, have a match with anybody, turn up, do what he needs to do, and there would not be there wouldn't be a Shawn Michaels without this guy.
Yep.
And I would go out on a limb, and this is probably another conversation for another day, John. Mm-hmm. There would not be an Attitude Era or a Mr. McMahon without a Bret Hart. When you go around the houses and you look at those sliding door moments, the importance of this guy in the business to how it looks now and how it looked from 1996, 1997 onwards, there would not be a lot of that stuff without this guy. And I will die on that fucking hill.
So do you think the refusal for him to drop the belt was the inception of McMahon?
I don't think the refusal of it. I think the way that all happened, the way it all went down. Like there was, you can argue about who was right and who was wrong. They were both right and they were both wrong at the same time. Like I understand both points of view.
Yeah.
But the way that happened and how it went down, and then the X amount of time after that was a sliding door moment in the industry, in the business, and that was probably the sole reason that the WWE won the quote-unquote Monday Night War, is because of that moment. And Bret Hart's got one of the biggest impacts on the business ever, and he was a champion at the time. He was running around, he was doing all that. We talk about not sort of drawing money. In America, nobody was drawing money. In Canada and overseas, in the UK and Europe, the Middle East, Bret Hart was absolutely killing it. He was making hand over fist with this money. I think it's just the wrestling business in America at the time wasn't prepared or wasn't sort of in a position to take that, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think he would
have been number 6 for me?
Do you think he would have been massive in like the old school territories in the US?
I think he would have been a great wrestler, territory wrestler. Whether he would have been a great NWA champion, I don't know. But when you look at the list of people and the attributes that you had to have as an NWA champion, probably yes. And he lived that life. He lived that. You know what I mean? Like this guy was, he lived that kayfabe life almost. Sort of 99% of the time.
Love the gimmick, right?
He lived the gimmick, yeah. And he's. You look at some of the best matches in that period, that mid '90s period, sort of '93 to 1996. They're all going to have Bret Hart in them, and like I said, a lot of them were title matches. Like this guy was incredible. He was a great champion. I don't put him. You mentioned earlier on we were talking about the smaller guys, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I understand he's a smaller guy. I get it. I don't put him in the same conversation as Eddie Guerrero. I think I think his persona, the way that he was put over, like Bret Hart, he worked to get there. I'm not taking that away at all. He worked to get there. But Eddie Guerrero fucking fought to get to where he had to get to be able to even be in that conversation. He fought so fucking hard to get to where he was. With Bret, he worked his way there, and I don't think it's the same conversation. You look at those guys around the time, and I can get what you're saying. You had the Hulk Hogan's, probably just not that far off, but you look at those guys who were in the mix in 1993 when Hart won the title. You've got your Mr. Perfects or your Ric Flairs. He was, you know what I mean? Like he won the title from Flair, right? So they weren't these big, fucking meaty, beefy Hulk Hogan's or Ultimate Warriors, or when Eddie was around, like Brock was there, like Hogan was there, Triple H, Batista, like all these big, massive guys. I don't think the conversation is quite the same with Bret than it is with Eddie. And I think the industry was going in a really horrible direction. You look at the talent that was coming in with Eddie. You had those big guys, you had those bigger guys who were being brought in from OVW or whatever. Like, oh, this is what we want. Eddie changed the mold, changed it. It's a different conversation for me. Bret Hart there's because of what he did for the business and him being a champion. Eddie's there for what he done for the business for me.
Interesting. Okay. Yep. I love the justification, Hoxie boy. I love the justification. Yep. Okay, we're going on to number six for me. Yep. It's someone you've already mentioned. Is Triple H for me? Is number 6.
Okay.
Basically, I can't argue with anything you said. Best heel in the business at a certain point. He definitely is. Trained by Killer Kowalski. He knows the industry. I think what also we've got to remember is, well, two main things. Is I believe that DX was the first real stable of the Attitude Era in terms of the change of it. You had certain things that were happening in terms of the stables, like the Hart Foundation, etc. They were still there, but in terms of proper Attitude Era, DX and Triple H was a huge proponent of that, right? I think that's got to be remembered. They were one of the reasons why it accelerated so much, the Attitude Era, because it was just so different. And then obviously the DX changed into the sort of comedy side of it, and again, Triple H's comedy work is so underrated as well in terms of the wrestling business. I think he's just so quick. He's very quick fire. I think it's just a natural it's a natural comedic timing, which I think is really, really cool. But his best work, just revisiting it, is definitely his heel work. And I think it was heel work at a time where WWE didn't actually have decent heels at that time. I mean, they had obviously their baby faces, but he sort of took that stereotypical ball and ran with it. It's just, he just exuded something. And I think obviously if you think about where it goes, if you take Stephanie out of it, there would be no hesitation people would have him in the top 10. But it's this whole, he married Steph, he's married, he's went into the business. It's just bullshit. And
you wouldn't have got there if it wasn't for her or whatever.
Exactly.
Bullshit.
I mean, what you've got to think as well, if it wasn't for the curtain call, he was in line for a massive push anyway. So people saw the talent.
You would have won the King of the Ring when Stone Cold won it.
Exactly.
So think how different the business would have been then. Some crazy shit, right?
And I mean, if you look at the state of the business just now, I mean, Vince has been sort of shifted to the side of creative, and the creative under Triple H is so much better. So he knows the business, he knows the wrestling business, because he's one of the boys, right? I say he's one of the boys, right? this is again another conversation we'll have probably in a different podcast. We're not talking the Bucks, one of the boys. He is, he's been on the front line. He's been a main event talent. That's the difference. So yeah, for me,
and he was trained in the ways of that sort of old school mentality that just the way wrestling was for a long time, in my opinion as well, the way wrestling should be, right? That territory mentality is he
gets it.
It's there. He gets it.
He just gets it.
Great mind for the business. Great mind.
Absolutely.
And do you know what I liked about him as a heel? Just really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
He did cheat. He cheated.
Yep.
Heels nowadays, the heels want to be cool heels. They want to be the cool kid. Like, he was a cheater. He had no issues in taking the easy way out, or just, the screw, the double cross, whatever you want to call it. He cheated, and that's what heels should do. And he was so good at it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So
I think
good.
that's what gives him the heel heat, though, right? It's like you say, he didn't have to, because he was a big boy. It's like, he didn't have to. He could legitimately kick fuck at you without even thinking about it, but he went for the easy option, which, I think the only person that is getting that is MJF. I think he's, again, this is a different podcast altogether, but MJF for me is currently the best.
We can have this conversation. Yeah, he's not even close. You could pick him up, put him in any time within the wrestling business ever.
Yep.
From when it was at the carnivals, from when it was a work shoot, from when it was whatever. You pick that guy up, you put him anywhere in history, and he will be the biggest star or one of the biggest stars in history. He is incredible.
That's a different podcast. That's a different time. Right, okay, before we move on to the number 5 positions, we are going to have a little segue. It's going to be a little thing that we have in the middle of our top 10 lists, and it's called the Royal Fumble.
Royal Fumble!
Okay, so the Royal Fumble is when we talk about certain things in the business, be it today's business or business of the past, where stuff has went wrong and it's a decision that we think shouldn't have been made. Am I right, Hoxie? Is that the premise of Royal Fumble?
Yeah, could be a mess up, could be a botch, could be a stupid decision, could be somebody saying something silly, could be whatever. Just someone who has quote unquote dropped the ball, or something has happened to drop the ball. Definitely. Do you want to do the honours, mate?
No. Well, I think me and Hoxie deliberated what's going to be the first one. It's got to be something that's happened in the recently. It's something that's happened very, very recently in the wrestling business. And well, I think Hoxie, after you, my friend, what is the biggest Royal Fumble of the recent past?
CM Punk.
It's got to be.
How can a company, a promotion, a group of people, a group of professionals, a group of executives, whatever, I don't know, however you want to term it, I don't care, whatever you want to say, how can you mess up, fuck up, screw up as bad as AEW has just done with CM Punk? When we could literally do a whole podcast on the wheres and the whys and the hows and all that sort of stuff. Anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, go and read up on it. Just go and listen to another podcast or whatever. They'll be able to fill you in with all the hows and the whys or whatever. I don't understand how this can happen, John. You
can be the biggest asshole under the sun. He draws you fucking money. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, it's essentially what they've done is they have backed Jungle Boy over CM Punk because Jungle Boy is one of the boys of the Bucks. That's what it comes down to.
So the elite. It's all started with that elite. Yeah. It's the us versus them or me versus them mentality of they like to sniff their own farts and they think they're a lot better and a lot bigger than what they actually are. They need to wake up and probably smell their own farts and realize that they don't smell as rosy as they think they once did. When you have a CM Punk, when you have a star, when you have a guy, you have a wrestler who is that good, who draws you that amount of money, who sells you that amount of pay-per-views, who gets you that amount of TV views, who sells you all the merch under the sun, who gets you mainstream media, who works with the talent the way that he does, giving back to the business, the people who want to learn from somebody who has stood on top of the quote-unquote mountain. Like, you do not pass that up. You do not let that slide. You don't fuck that up. It, I I'm a huge CM Punk fan anyway, and I'm not saying this from a fan. Part of me is frustrated because I am a fan, and I want to see him on my TV. I want to see him have matches. I want to see him have feuds. I want to see him do this amazing stuff that he does. I want him to paint these beautiful fucking portraits on this canvas every single time he goes out there. Like, I want him to do that. I don't understand how you can fuck this up so bad. It's insane. I know you've got the Bucks who are on the fucking, like, the executives, and they're on the board or whatever. You've got guys like Hangman Page, who is their mate. You've got guys like Kenny, who thinks he runs the gaff. Like, when you are a star in any walk of life, strip this away from wrestling for a second, John. Okay, you have high performing people in the workplace, in a job, in a sales job, for example. I've experienced this in the past with environments in which I've worked in. You have high performing people who they don't function like everybody else. No. They don't work like that. They don't quote unquote conform to different people's opinions. That's why they perform well, because they are outside of the box. They think about things differently. They react to things differently. That's the way that they are. This is a massive, massive, massive failing from the management. And the book, forgive the pun, I hate that. The book has to stop with Tony Khan. It has to stop with Tony Khan. He could have nipped this in the arse 18 months ago. The second Hangman Page walked back through the curtain after cutting that stupid business for himself, off the cuff, unannounced promo on CM Punk, he should have kicked Hangman Page's ass all over the building, suspended him, dropped him down to the bottom of the card, whatever. Made an example of that situation. Had the conversation with the people who are involved in this and seen what's going on. What's going on here, guys? There's issue A, there's issue B. Somewhere in the middle, we need to find a solution. Somewhere in the middle is going to be the truth. You shut the fuck up. You shut the fuck up. Let's go make some money. Do you know who's done that for the last 40 years? Vince McMahon. You think about how many people he has managed, how many issues he has managed, how many sort of, we talked earlier on about the Bret Hart situation. Like, you have all these crazy, crazy things that have happened in the wrestling business, in the WWE, the WWF, whatever. Vince McMahon has managed his way through it. If they haven't found a solution, what does he do? See you later. You're gone. Bye. If you've got A or B, let's try and do business. If we can't, you got to go and find somewhere else to ply your trade. Like, that's the way it works. If the issue was all with CM Punk and that was the outcome, fair enough. But it wouldn't have got to where it got to now. And I just think it's crazy. It blows my mind. It makes me sick to the pit of my stomach, knowing that we're missing out on great stuff to happen in wrestling, because we need it, right?
Yeah,
we need
100%. Well, that's the point I was going to make. And I like Punk. You know, I like Punk as much as the next guy. I'm not a huge fan as you are. I appreciate what he does, but in terms of a wrestling fan, AEW were starting to become a legitimate, maybe not a threat to WWE, but a legitimate alternative to WWE. But We're not talking about the flippy bullshit, right? You know, that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, a legitimate story-based wrestling program. You know, and I'm not saying it's all down to Punk. That they've got superstars there that, like, will carry that on. Obviously, we've got Adam Copeland moving into that now. That's absolutely fine. But they had, like, Bryan Danielson. They had MJF, as we've talked about before. Like, Adam Cole to some extent as well. You know, he gets it. I think he's trying to step away from the Bucks. That's my opinion, but that's by the by.
Yes.
But Punk was the sort of the beacon on top of that. I mean, they created the new show for him when he came back, right?
Yeah.
It's like so it just shows that
and how good was it, by the way? How good was that show?
It's ridiculous. It was ridiculously good.
Yep.
I mean, look at the ratings now. I mean, they are tanking. They're going down slowly but surely. And is that
It's
down
just
to
a
Punk
rinse and
leaving?
repeat of a Wednesday. That's all it is.
Well,
They've got
that's
the
it.
same faces on the Saturday show than they had on the Wednesday show.
With zero.
The Wednesday
booking,
show
like,
is
there's
it's
nothing.
hovering at 850,000 to 950,000 every week, and it has been that way for ages and ages and ages. You had your Saturday show, just crazy. I think the first show was 1 million. Was it 1 million people?
Yep.
Stop me when I'm telling lies, guys. Okay, fucking bullshit. Carry on. Sorry, mate.
No, it's absolutely fine. I mean, the worst story that I heard, though, again, I don't know if it's true. This is allegedly that there was going to be a meeting between Punk, the Bucks, and CM Punk. Punk was all ready to go for it, and the Bucks went, "I'm not meeting. We're not meeting." At what point does an employee dictate when they're meeting? That's when the head honcho should go, "What are you talking about? You're going to this fucking meeting." It's like, get your arse there. As you said before, what are the issues? Let's solve the issues. Let's make some money. And they didn't do that. And I think that's down to Tony Khan. Just, he wants to be one of the boys. And
he wants to be everybody's friend, right?
Yeah, there's stories about Vince wanting to be one of the boys. He could never make it as a wrestler, and there's all that all those stories. But when it came to it, he drew the line, and business was business. And I don't think Khan's got that same acumen. But again, it's not his money; it's Daddy's money, right?
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Hey-ho. So yes, that's the first royal fumble for the.
I just think, not to put a bow on it, but just really quickly, I think if we take, I'm happy that we've got what we had. So that MJF CM Punk feud will go down as one of the best feuds in wrestling, in my opinion. When all said and done, 20, 30 years down the line or whatever, we as wrestling fans will look back on that feud and just think, holy shit, it was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And the pain and sort of hurt that I feel by not being able to see more of that is immeasurable for me. But I'm happy that we got it anyway, because there wasn't really much chance of this guy coming back to wrestling ever.
Yep.
7 years without him, he's came back and give us what you had. I'm happy for that. But fuck me, guys. I don't understand how you can fuck it up so bad.
That pop was insane when he came back.
Oh, mate. I still watch that. That.
Yep. And I agree with you. The MJF CM Punk feud is possibly the best storyline they've done in AEW. My personal opinion. But again, that's potentially another podcast as well.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to the list, that is our royal fumble for the first ever episode of Mark Out of 10. Okay, so I believe it's still my go, Hoxie Boy, yes, for my number 5. So we're in the top 5 now. My number 5. Okay, and my 5 and 6, and to be fair, my 10 to 5 is probably interchangeable, okay, but these are the positions I locked in. And my number 5 is the great one, it's The Rock. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
Now, in terms of wrestler, he went through the full journey as a wrestler, right? He went from a guy that was the clean baby face that came in and got booed out the building, right? Die Rocky die, yeah? And then he transitioned into a heel in terms of the nation, The Rock. He became the people's champ. He became, in my opinion, probably the most charismatic superstar in WWE ever. I think, if not, he's definitely the conversation about top 3 at least. He just exudes that confidence. He's for that time. You've got to remember the Attitude Era was the time where it appealed to the young teens, right? So for potentially those teenagers that didn't have the confidence, that were a bit weedy, that they just didn't have any confidence, but he just exudes so much charisma and so much confidence. He spoke to a generation, similar to what Bruno did in New York in terms of the working class, getting them in the doors. He did the same for the younger generation that potentially didn't have that confidence. I mean, I can remember at school, it's like, how many times walking down the corridor you hear, like, know your role, shut your mouth, just bring it, all these catchphrases. I mean, you could speak to anybody about The Rock, and they'll have the catchphrases.
Yep.
I would say when Austin took his ball and went home, Rocky picked up the ball and he ran with it. You know, he picked up that mantle and he became like as big a star as Austin. You know, granted not at Austin's peak, but Rocky is in that conversation. You know, and you know he headlined WrestleMania after WrestleMania with Stone Cold, the greatest WrestleMania match in terms of crowd participation, Rock and Hogan. You know, for me, one of the best WrestleMania matches ever. You know, just in terms of swiveling the crowd on a sixpence. Again, another future podcast.
People shit on that match and they say, "Oh, play it with mute it and watch it with a mute on." No,
that's not wrestling.
I don't want to watch it with a mute on. What's the fucking point in that? Like, I agree with you. One of the best matches ever in history. Not even close. Incredible.
And for me, in terms of we're talking about impact on the business.
Yep.
If we're talking about wrestling, I think his work speaks for himself. You know, multiple time WWE champion.
Yep.
As I say, charisma, all that jazz. But in terms of WWE as a business, he is the reason there is that connection to Hollywood. You know, he is the reason why WWE is no longer seen as this hokey wrestling company, but as a global entertainment company. You know, he is that reason.
He's probably the first true crossover star?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, obviously, there'll be arguments in terms of Hulk Hogan doing Suburban Commando and stuff, but it didn't have the same impact.
It's not the same impact.
Hogan didn't have the longevity in Hollywood, you know.
Yep.
You know, Rock is a legitimate billionaire himself. You know, he's... I mean, the rumours about running president,
right?
You know, run for president. It's like, what the fuck is that?
He'd probably fucking win as well. Yeah.
You know, I just think he's got to be definitely in top 5 in this type of conversation. I think, I can't think of any reason as to why you wouldn't have him on a list. But again,
what do you think? What do you think about his comeback in 2011, 2012, or whatever? What in the title? You know what I mean? What do you think that was a good thing? Do you think that was a bad thing?
I think it was a necessary thing for the business because
I think it was necessary.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. I don't think at that time the WWE didn't have an alternative in terms of their champion. You know, I think the booking was stagnant. It needed an injection of something, and you know, why not inject it with the most electrifying man in sports entertainment? You know, to quote the great man himself. I think the only way that'll be forgotten about, because it does get shat on, you know, in terms of he should never came back, he should never won the title, blah, 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 which it's fair enough, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I personally think it was necessary, but I think if he came back now, I think that would be worse than when he did.
Than when it was back then.
Yeah. I think him versus Roman it's too late. I think it's a year too late, potentially. But again, that's something we can discuss later on.
They had the discussion, didn't they?
Yeah.
He was on the Pat McAfee show, and they said they had a handshake agreement on it being last year.
Yeah.
Is it Philadelphia?
Mm-hmm.
I probably agree that it's a year too late. I think there was a lot of meat on the bone for a storyline for the old bloodline, and throw in obviously the Rock's. I mean, he's the Samoan heritage in the mix and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
I don't think it's going to happen now.
Because
Sorry, say again.
So he would have had to have been there for a long time. It's not just like let's go and stand and point at the WrestleMania fucking logo and I'll see you there in like 6 months or whatever. Like, you would need to build it. And I don't think it probably would have had the capacity to do that. And I think The Rock is there for the pop and that
pop,
sort of the one shot, like the one or two things. I think if he came out for 6 months, it probably wouldn't have the same shine as it would do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think it is that nostalgic pop, isn't it? I mean, and I think it shows how weak the business is, the fact that you can still get like a Rock coming back, a Stone Cold, you know, the glass breaking, you've got the Taker coming down with the gong, and the place will go crazy. There's no one pulls in that now.
Nope.
You know,
we haven't got any stars.
Nah, there's no stars.
Because none of them have been made. None of them have grew like organically. Wrestling now
too
is
cookie cutter.
It's too scripted. It's too this is the way we're going to go, whether you like it or not. It's chosen. There's an argument for LA Knight at the minute, going from being Max Dupree or whatever he was to coming back. Like, this will be another conversation probably for another day. But what he's doing it now is absolutely incredible. But he's like he's one of one. You know what I mean? There isn't anything else like that's happening or has happened for a long time. Maybe Daniel Bryan was probably the last time to have that sort of massive, huge wave of like, we need to make this happen. Like, you had the guys who would, there's your mic, go and get yourself over, or we're going to put you in this position, get yourself over, do what you need to do, make the best of a bad situation, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's 500 people on the fucking roster, and they've got enough TV time for X amount of people, and they just give them shit to do. Nobody can get themselves over when they've got no personality, or they've been given no personality, or they've got none. It's hard. It's hard.
The biggest miss from WWE and recently, I think, has been Bray Wyatt when he was, in terms of the cult leader. They should have put it on there, because the Fiend, it was a great concept, blah blah blah. You know, that's fine, but it was just too hokey. It was just too gimmicky. Whereas that Bray Wyatt character, when you first saw him, when he was sitting in the rocking chair, I've got the whole world in my hands. It's just
this guy's like either side of him. Yeah, it's like, just amazing.
We're here. It's just it was just so good, and they missed the ball completely with him. It was such a shame, you know. But again, there's more podcasts coming, so we're going to be talking about that all the time. So yeah, Rocky, the great one, the most electrifying man in all sports entertainment, is man number 5, Foxy.
Good man.
Over to you.
We have my number 5 now. It was a bit of a toss-up between my number 6 and my number 5. I only chose this guy at number 5 for his quote-unquote second run. This is what put him over the edge for me. My number 5 is Shawn Michaels. Okay. He is either 1 or 1A for the best in-ring wrestler ever. He's on that conversation. A lot of people's conversations with it's either him or Ric Flair. Depends on what kind of mood I'm in, or what kind of day it is, or which way the wind's blowing. He's either my 1A or one with Flair anyway. So he was the first guy really to quote unquote be that sort of smaller guy to be able to. So it's a very similar justification than why my number 10 is Eddie Guerrero, if you know what I mean. It's a different reason. To have the title and to just be this unbelievable, incredible worker, this amazing guy who's like nobody had seen matches at a champion, like a world championship level, like he had before in WWE or in wrestling. Probably there were always the bigger guys. There were always these the bear hugs for 5 minutes and the fucking kick out leg drop. You know what I mean? Boo yay! Like that's what it was for a very, very long period of time. And for this guy to come in and just be the champion, be that heartbreak kid, be that heel, and just come in and just do all that mad stuff. It was just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Winning the championship for the first time, like just getting that Royal Rumble win and just being absolutely incredible in these unbelievable matches with Bret, like the Iron Man match, like the draw, you know what I mean, like for these titles, and just to have him come out and be this incredible champion and just have some amazing matches with guys like Sid, like Psycho Sid Vicious, whatever, having these title matches with this guy who he wasn't there really. He was there to make a bit of money, like because it wasn't softball season, you know what I mean? He just wanted to come in and do a bit, and just to go out there and bump and feed for this guy, and the unbelievable matches he had with Taker, like the Undertaker, like just incredible. The first Hell in the Cell, a Bad Blood, just incredible matches, and he was the first Grand Slam champion in history, if I can remember rightly. So he was incredible, and then obviously coming back after doing his backing and coming back and just having I know it's a different title, but just coming back and just having these incredible runs and these incredible matches. He's one of the best ever, if not the best ever to ever do it. Take away all the shit, all the personal stuff we're talking about wrestling and all that. Just he's incredible. This was a real big sort of fight in my mind as to where he was going to sit. Yeah. The top 5 for me was so hard. It was so hard, mate. There isn't really like a really unbelievably big reason why he's probably not a little bit higher. I probably could have put him number 4 for me. But I settled on 5 just because of a couple of other reasons, obviously, which I'll go into. But Shawn Michaels is just, incredible.
See, Shawn for me was one that I was wrestling with from the get-go, because for me, top 10 of all time. You know? But in terms of champion, I think it's very similar to the Kurt Angle thing for me.
Okay.
You know, it's like... Yeah, I just think if you think of a WWE champion, he's not the first name that go to. That makes sense. It's like, in terms of performer, if you ask me one of the best wrestlers of all time, 100% agree with you. It's a lock, Shawn Michaels, right? You know, so good. But I didn't put him on because it was best champion of WWE. If it was best wrestler, he'd be much higher on my list as well. He'd be like definitely top 2 anyway. But yeah, I can't.
So him carrying that title through that mid-90s period and then dropping it to Stone Cold, you can't put him up there in a top 10 conversation.
Nah.
Wow. Wow.
It hurts. It really does hurt me. You know, like I love Shawn, honestly. I do love HBK. And I agree with you. I think his second run when he comes back from injury is so good, and the storyline he tells with like Triple H, like when they think he's going to like reform DX, Triple H hits him with the sledgehammer, he's in the wheelchair, and I'll always remember this. It's like in WWE New York, and he's in the wheelchair, and JR's interviewing him, how's the rehab going, and he like sits up, he stands up from the wheelchair, and he does the HBK gimmick, and it's like, fuck, just that's so good. And there's a bit of it, he goes, it's like, I could be coming down the ramp, I could be coming from the ceiling, I could be coming from under the ring, over the ring, and the next again week in Raw, he does it because Triple H is like in a casket match or something, and HBK comes out the casket and jumps in the ring from under the ring. It's just like, I just think his mind for the business is so good. And again, if you think about what he's doing in NXT just now, it's like, he's just so good. I'm so glad that, we hear so many bad stories in the wrestling industry in terms of people that have the demons, and it doesn't go well. He is a lucky, lucky boy. But yeah, we are going to do one best of all times. Who do you think is the best? And for me, Shawn's going to be on that list. But for champion, unfortunately, didn't make my list.
I can't believe that.
Sorry.
I can't believe that.
I know.
I feel sick.
Sorry to disappoint you. This might be the only episode of Mark Out of 10. Hoxie will never speak to me again. Okay, Hoxie, you're number 4.
I'm not sure I want to carry on, mate, if I'm honest with you. I feel that's absolutely ridiculous he didn't get onto top 10. That's mad. That's ridiculous. Okay, let me compose myself for a second. So, my number 4 is, like I said, this sort of, the top 4 for me was difficult. Maybe 1 and 2 was probably a bit easier, but the top 4 for me was really difficult. My number 4 is John Cena. So I just think, obviously, if you look at the amount of titles he's won, just ridiculous. And I know everyone says, oh, well, to win it that many times, you have to lose it that many times. Whatever. I don't give a fuck about that. It's wrestling, it's work, trying to put logic to an illogical fucking situation. But this guy Joe, we talk about, you mentioned about The Rock being the first sort of major breakout star, that crossover star. I think John Cena's number two. We're not talking about his championship, but to be that popular and to be that over, to be able to do that crossover says a lot about him and sort of gives him his legitimacy as a worker and as a champion. He was always in the championship picture from when he first got that belt. That the Doctor of Thugonomics, like the feud he had with fucking Big Show and Bradshaw, and you look at the amount of guys that he's had these title runs with, or these feuds with. So you got Big Show, you've got obviously Bradshaw, like JBL, you've got Edge, Van Dam. You look at that fucking that one night only match, like with Van Dam, and like there wasn't many people in the business or have been in the business ever that would have been able to get that reaction and incite that reaction from that crowd.
Yep.
I know it was a hostile crowd and it was an ECW crowd and it was it was whatever, RVD if he was in there with anyone from the WWE, but I don't think anyone could have got that level than John Cena. Obviously the stuff with Randy Orton is, I'm not a massive Randy Orton fan. This is probably where we'll fall out at some point down the line, but I don't get it. Really don't get it. I think he's an arrogant, ignorant prick most of the time. We got a little bit better in his later years, but that's by the by. But the feud he had, that back and forth title change with Randy Orton was just insane. To do what he does with the Make-A-Wish stuff, to headline these pay-per-views, to make all this money, like the amount of money they made. We talk about The Rock and Cena having that match at WrestleMania, like one of the most, like the biggest drawing cards ever. And you can't say it was for the undercard. There might have been a couple of things on there or whatever, but it was for The Rock and Cena, right? Like the stuff coming out of that when he went with that stuff with Lesnar. I know it necessarily wasn't the champion at the time, but you have all these amazing feuds, these amazing runs, making all of this money, making all the merch money, the stuff he did for the troops, like the tribute to the troops shit. Like, this guy has to be in the conversation of Mount Rushmore for wrestlers ever, just from drawing power, just from the business. He changed the way the business worked. He put it onto a completely different level and a different plane. And you can say that about the wrestlers or the show or whatever. When the title is on that main guy, that's who that focus is on. Yeah. And you stick your rocket to that guy's back. If it takes off, brilliant. If it doesn't, then we've seen it in the past. Like, things change, right? Yep. People don't get the belt. It gets given to somebody else, whatever. And that match, that Money in the Bank match, Money in the Bank pay-per-view with CM Punk, fuck me. One of the best matches ever, in my opinion. Absolutely incredible. Incredible. And John Cena he gets a lot of grief. He gets a lot of shit from being this guy who can't work and can't wrestle, whatever. You don't need to be able to wrestle if you're as good at telling a story than he is. Yep. And he is massively underrated as a worker. Hugely underrated. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can do a fucking Vernon Schnavitz double fucking flip indie or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that. I want to shout at someone, or I want to scream at someone, or I want to boo at someone. Yep. Oohs and yays are better than oohs and ahs, mate.
I would agree. 100%.
For me,
that's a t-shirt right there.
John Cena's number 4 for me. All day, every day. Incredible. Probably a little bit annoyed I didn't put him any higher, but there we go. Yep.
Yeah.
Cena's number 4.
Fair dues. Sounds good. I like the cut of your jib.
I'm glad I got that out of the way without just going back to the Shawn Michaels thing. I can't believe that, John. Can't believe that. Incredible. Look at the list. I've been writing your list down as I'm going through. I can't believe it.
To be fair, most of our list is matching up. Man number 4.
Not bad, right? It's not
bad at all. Man number 4 is probably down to just pure favoritism. He probably doesn't deserve to be as high up as this.
Like a Kurt Angle or like a Shawn Michaels.
Kurt Angle alone, there, right? You've already knocked him. Just leave Kurt alone, right? Man number 4 is Taker. You know, I think for every reason that you said, and just the fact that I fucking love him. It's like I just
You're a
think
taker mark, mate.
I'm
You're
a
a
taker
taker
mark,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
and there's
Same here.
absolutely
I just
nothing
couldn't
wrong
put
with
him
that.
higher. Yep.
I think a lot of our lists could be interchangeable. I think positional wise, I think we're very similar. But yeah, Taker for me, just like you say, the cornerstone. Like you said, he's a cornerstone of the business. He's a guy that he wanted it, and what was the story? It was like he was looking to get trained, and he was going to the gym looking to speak to one of the wrestlers, and he was sitting outside. He was sitting out there for days on end, and until just somebody came up and goes, "You all right, kid?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to get a wrestler." And he goes, "Go and speak to him," and that's how he essentially got into like the training for wrestling. It was just, and he's an all-round nice guy as well. If you hear him now, and I love the fact he has, and this sounds really bittersweet, but I love the fact he's retired now, and you can actually hear Mark Calloway talk as opposed to Undertaker.
Yeah.
Because hearing the stories is just...
Do you not think that's weird, though? Do you not think it's weird? Because he like lived his whole life as this gimmick. Like even back then, like kayfabe was to him. So like when I see him on a podcast now, it makes me feel really weird. It's so strange.
It freaks me out.
Strange.
But what I love about it is, we're talking about this sort of cheap pop, of Rock coming back and Stone Cold coming back. I love the fact that now he is Mark Calloway and he can sort of do the, American badass gimmick. He doesn't need to put the mask on and rest in peace and all that. But because he's just cool, man. I just don't care. He's just cool.
He's cool as fuck.
Right, that's why he's number
fuck,
4.
right?
That's it. Not my number 4, Undertaker, because he's cool as fuck. Right, that's
he's
it.
cool as fuck. There we go.
see Hoxie's reasons for details,
Yeah.
Fucking
just
love
rewind
him.
back a little bit, or
so
just
good.
listen at another time. Yeah,
okay,
I like that.
My number 3 is John Cena. Again, you stole my thunder, Mr. Hawks. You stole
so close,
thunder.
right?
It's
there or thereabouts, isn't it? There or thereabouts.
He carried the company for well over a decade. He's. I mean, I'm just going to repeat everything he said. And again, it goes back to this sort of cheap pop. It's why is he brought back? People are saying, oh, he's brought back, he's stifling their stars. And I think he said it best himself in that promo with Roman Reigns. I think it was in 2017, where he said to Roman Reigns, you should be ashamed. I'm a part-timer because I do this part-time better than you could ever do it full-time. And never a truer word is spoken. He is... And to be fair, that lit the fire under Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns he's very, very good now. In terms of his heel work just now is very, very good. He's not on my list, just FYI, he's not top 2, just saying. But he's
nowhere fucking near mine.
Nowhere near it, yeah. In terms of longevity, you'd have a discussion, but he wasn't even in my discussion, even as an honourable mention. But yeah, Cena for me. To be fair, I didn't even think of the Make-A-Wish type things. It's like that's an excellent point, and it goes back to what you said about Bruno. He lived life as the champ, and I think the selfish bit of me would have loved to see him turn heel. I would love to have seen it, but I think he recognised the sort of impact he was having in sort of young people's lives, and I don't think the heel turn would have worked. Or it would have...
It would have worked for the business. It would have worked for everybody who was thinking, holy shit, it was the Hogan point. But I think if Hogan was doing Make-A-Wishes constantly back then, he probably would have thought twice of not... Well, actually, with Hogan, he would have made all the money he possibly could, so I'll scrap that.
I don't even think it would have worked for the business, because I just think the timing was just all wrong. It wasn't that... Dr. Thugonomics would not work.
No.
You know what I mean? If it was like the later
different
part
world,
of the Attitude Era, it's a totally different era. For me, as a selfish, because he's entertaining as fuck, right? Let's be honest. John Cena is entertaining. And like you say, booze and yes.
Right on the mic, right in the ring, telling
absolutely.
stories. He's amazing.
Just so good. And I think I agree with you. I think he would definitely be in the discussion on the Mount Rushmore. Whether he would get in is a different matter, because there are a whole host of people you can put probably ahead of him, but he's definitely up there without a shadow of a lie. He's like fucking... He's so good.
16-time heavyweight champion.
Yep.
Incredible.
Insane.
13 13. There we go. 13 WWE Championships, 3 World Heavyweight Championships. So it's 13-time WWE champion. It's incredible.
Insane.
Incredible. Yeah, but he's obviously lost it 14 times. Fuck off.
What's the 5 moves of doom? Fuck right off.
Yeah.
5 move this.
And watch a fucking Young Butch match and have a fucking wank. See you later.
Okay, Mr. Hawks, we're back over to you. Your number 3 for top 10 best WWE champs ever.
My number 3 is The Rock.
Fair enough.
I can't really add much to what you said in terms of sort of what your justification really, but just when you look at the champions, and I know he didn't hold it very long, he wasn't necessarily on top for very long either. It was a few years, four years, is that?
Yeah.
But it was at probably the biggest, if not the second biggest boom period in the business. You have The Rock and Stone Cold, who are generational talents, and you had them both at the same time. You captured lightning in a bottle twice, like at the same time, one after the other. That just doesn't happen. And for them to both be as over and to get over and to be as good as they were, and The Rock being one of those guys, he has to be in this conversation. The amount of money that he made, the amount of money that he drew, the amount of merch that he sold, like, we're not looking at 16-time champion or whatever. We're looking at X amount, whatever he won, probably 3 or 4, whatever it was. But this guy was incredible, absolutely incredible. He knew what he wanted to do. He had all of it. There was it dripping off him that people were trying to grab hold of, and he still had enough. You know what I mean? He was incredible as a champion. He was unbelievable as a face, as a heel, insane. Just incredible feuds, incredible matches. Just the guy. Yeah, number 3.
For
Easy.
me, it's the journey, right? It's the case of it was die Rocky die.
Die Rocky die. Yeah.
You know, getting booed out of Madison
Rocky
Square Garden.
Maivia.
You know, getting booed out of MSG. It's like I don't think there's in today's business. I don't think there's anybody that could survive that. Which just shows his absolute drive and determination. I think it helps the fact he is like the third generation. You know, just like and his dad probably.
He was the chosen one as well, really, to a certain degree, which is a good thing. And I think Vince had a lot owed to the family, to the Samoans. But I agree. There's not that many people, who would have been able to do it at all. You look at it was like I think it's the highest rated segment in WWE or WWF. Was him doing the what is it, that TV show, This Is Your Life, with him and Mick Foley.
Yep.
Like, that says a lot. You know what I mean? Like, that says a lot. Like, people wanted to watch him, people wanted to see him, people wanted to see what was going on. Pay-per-view buys are up, TV segments are up. Like, the guy was the guy, man. He was the guy. He really was. Incredible. Yeah, he's up there. He's going to be on the Mount Rushmore conversation as well. Obviously, we're getting higher up to the greatest champions ever in the biggest company ever. Like, they're always going to be in that conversation. But The Rock, man, number 3, easy top 3 for me.
Yep. Okay, so we're going into top 2 positions now. I'm going to hazard a guess. I think we potentially could have the same top 2.
The same top 2. It depend which way around it's going to be. There could be a very. We'll
wait and see. So you're number 2.
I was expecting us to be kicking off. The only thing we've kicked off about is Shawn Michaels. Like, I can't believe he's not on here, mate.
I know,
John,
I know.
Seriously, mate. I can't believe
you've
it.
got Eddie Guerrero in yours. I mean, fucking, it's like
fucking hell.
Okay, your number 2, Hoxie, is.
My number 2 is Hulk Hogan.
Ditto. So's mine.
The real American.
Yeah.
For him to. We could probably do this both at the same time. We can have a discussion about this if we're both going for number 2.
Yep.
There is probably nobody ever in the history of wrestling who affected the business as much as this guy.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
100%. He is the person, in my opinion, that made it sports entertainment. He
changed the
was
business, right?
a bona fide star of a generation, and as a generational, it transcends generations. Everybody knows who Hogan is. If you ask the littlest kid just now, everybody knows. I mean, you could ask my gran, you could ask Elsie Shore, and she would know who Hulk Hogan is. That's the point. And yeah, 100%.
The average man in the street or the average woman in the street, whatever, you mention wrestling. In this country, you're either going to get Big Daddy Giant Haystacks or you're going to get Hulk Hogan, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yep. He's the amount of money that this guy made at the top. Every single wrestler wanted to work on the same cards that he was working on. Every wrestler, every heel from that heel monster factory wanted to be with him and work with him to make all the money. The Big Boss Man, I think the Big Boss Man went from earning like $500 a night to earning like $5,000 to $10,000 a night, working with Hulk Hogan at the top of the card when he was feuding with him in the late 80s.
Crazy, right?
Like, it's just the amount of money that this guy had, obviously the length of title run that this guy had. Like, he was, I think it's 5 or 6 time.
6, I think, isn't it?
6 time. 1,474 days. It's just insane. And also, you can't sleep on that WrestleMania 18 into that Backlash pay-per-view when he won the title from Hulk, from Triple H. Mm-hmm. That next run, like, to go away for that long. He left WWF in 1993, my memory serves. Mm-hmm. So he was in WCW. In 93 he left. To be away for 10 years, doing what all the shit he was doing, 11, whatever it was, 9, 10 years.
Yep. To
come back and probably be more over than he was when he left. Yeah. Well, I say probably more. He was. People were getting bored of the pose, and weren't they? Hogan must pose. They were getting bored of all that shit. For him to come back then, go out there, have that match with The Rock. They call that audible as the babyface, the heel swap, like the psychology change, and then for Vince, fair play to him to see the money in Hogan then at 40 odd years old and broken down and being away for that long, then to give him that title and for him to do what he did, just insane. Absolutely insane.
This is the flip side to Cena in terms of the heel turn there. It's like, that this is the point where, for all Vince's flaws, Vince is a genius. He saw the cash. He identified with Cena the heel turn might work in terms of a business proposition, but for Hogan, the red and yellow coming back was always going to make money. It's
like, feather bow around. You want to see that red and yellow, boy.
Everybody wants to see it. Hogan for me is just, and I think to do 2 turns, in terms of, I'm talking when he went from the red and yellow to the black and white. Mm-hmm. When he went to WCW, no one expected that heel turn. That could have went horribly wrong.
Which side is he on? Well, worst call in history.
But it's like he played that gimmick, and even now it's like when you see him, he's still got the black beard. He still can turn on a sixpence if he needed to, which I think is really, really clever. But I think Hogan is a lot. Again, we have that conversation about Mount Rushmore.
He's got to be on there.
He's got
the Rock and Wrestling thing, mate. Like the first WrestleMania, like the Rock and Wrestling, that crossover, like building that, getting onto the MTV. You know what I mean? All that shit with Cyndi Lauper and just that the whole change in the way the business was presented. Vince McMahon knew what he wanted to do, but he never ever would have been able to do it if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
there's that is not up for debate, in my opinion. People might say, "Oh, well, that was such and such." No, it wouldn't have worked. It would not have worked. He was larger than life. He was the character. The say your prayers, take your vitamins, all that bullshit. There was nobody else in the world at that time who could have done what he did, and
100%
changed the business forever. Changed the business. As the champion of the biggest company in the world, he ran he ran wild, brother. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Let's just not talk about like the later part of his career. Let's put that to the side, right? Let's go for the positive. Let's keep positive. Right,
We're talking about championship reigns, brother.
Championship reign, brother. Right, so that's us done 10-2. Okay, now
do you have a quick recap? Do you want to have a quick recap for yours and a quick recap for mine?
Yep. Okay, so I'll just run through mine from 10-2. Okay, so my number 10 was Bruno Sammartino. My number 9 was Brock Lesnar. 8 was Kurt Angle. Can't believe you didn't like Kurt Angle.
Yeah, no.
7 was Bret. 6 was Triple H. 5 was Rocky. 4 was Undertaker. 3 was Cena. And number 2 was Hulk Hogan. And for you?
Number 10, Eddie Guerrero. Number 9, The Undertaker. Number 8, Triple H. It feels like when you like Number 7, Bruno Sammartino. Number 6, Bret Hart. Number 5, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels. Number 4, John Cena. Number 3, The Rock. And number 2, same as you, Hulk Hogan. Brother.
Now, we have said a lot, we've been wrestling with ideas of like who's going to make the top 10.
Hey,
and see what I did there. Hashtag content creator. What we decided though is like we could go on forever. We decided we're allowed to have one honourable mention. Okay?
This was the hardest bit for me, John. This was the hardest bit for me. I can't. I still don't know. I've got them written down on this piece of paper in front of me. I still don't know.
Right, tell you what, I'll give you a chance to think about it, right? I'm going to give you mine, and this links into my number 2, okay? Now...
Right. I think I know where you're going to go.
I think without this character, without this person, our number 2 pick may not, I can't say he wouldn't have, but he may not have had the accelerated push that he did. I'm going with Sheiky, baby, Iron Sheik.
Oh, shit. Okay.
The Iron Sheik.
Holy shit.
In my opinion, was one of the best political heels ever. Right? In terms of, like, you know, you've got the bad heels, you've got that, but in terms of political, in terms of that timing of the Iron Sheik, I think was genius. And the fact that he was the perfect foil for the baby-faced Hulk Hogan. You know, He was, you know, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. You know, he was the perfect person to topple the Iron Sheik. And I think in terms of the way the business went, I think a lot of it's down to Sheiky, and, you know, rest in peace, Sheiky. But, you know, he lived that gimmick, he lived that feud up until the day he died. I'm going to make you humble, baby. You know, it's like...
I'll break your back, make you humble.
That's it. Fuck you, Hulk Hogan. You know, it's like...
Fuck you.
You know, it's like... So, mate, yeah, my honourable mention is the Iron Sheik.
Vasiri has made his way into the honourable mention section. Holy shit. Just for impact. Just for the okay. Do you know what, mate? I genuinely... That's a blindside for me. I can understand what you're saying. He didn't even get into any thought process of me through the whole of this. Nothing. Nowhere near.
To be fair, he wasn't on mine until I looked it up in terms of, like, you know, past W, because we all know in terms of our era, right? We knew the champions, etc.
Yeah.
But so what I did, I went back in time and I looked, and when his name came up, and I thought about the sort of the history of the title, the history of the feuds, etc. I think. Yeah, I think it was sort of left field, and this is what I said to you before we started recording. You know, my honourable mention's a bit left field, but I think my justification, and again, the viewers may crucify me for it. You may crucify me for it, but I think the link is quite nice. I think it works. So we'll wait and see.
Okay. But mate, if that's what you think, that's what you think, right? Not necessarily. So, like, I'm not going to sort of honorably mention all of these people, if that makes sense. Like superstar Billy Graham, fucking Bob Backlund.
Bob Backlund was on my...
CM Punk, Macho Man. Fuck me, like I was Edge. Even thinking... Edge wasn't really there for me. Edge is one of my favourite wrestlers. Yeah, without a doubt.
Off. There's no shot.
Without a doubt. That Summer of Punk, mate, that pipe bomb into that feud with Cena and all them lot, that Summer of Punk was was fucking incredible, and I think that's better than anything Edge did as WWE champion. Anyway, all he did was fuck Lita or dry hump her in a bed. Can't really say much more than that. We one great match
was
Edge
one of
had
John
as a
Cena's best feuds, though.
it's fucking the Punk feud pisses all over that for me. Not even close. Not even close. Okay, give me one great Edge match as WWE champion. Don't just say it, the match with John Cena.
Okay, yeah, fair dues.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
yeah,
fair
see,
enough.
yep. So, CM Punk was there. Fucking Macho Man was there. For me, this is almost a little bit left field. This is probably more of a personal thing, and also if you sit down and actually think about it and realize all the stuff that this guy did as a champion and changing the way the business is a little bit as well. My honorable mention is for Mick Foley.
Ooh, okay.
I think that'll put butts in seats moment of him beating, of him winning the title on that Raw episode and the whole story behind it and everything. I just think Foley gets overlooked a lot when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah.
And I think he gets overlooked a lot as what it meant to be a champion and what he sort of went through at the time. And I know you could say, oh, it wasn't clean, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, whatever. Just for me personally, like I love Mick Foley. I think he's an incredible mind, an incredible wrestler. The three faces of Foley, whatever you want to say. Just a little honorable mention. Like I didn't want to do it as like he had it for this amount of time, or he had it for just. For me, do you know you said because the Undertaker's cool, and I fucking love the Undertaker or whatever. For me, the honorable mention is Mick Foley, just because that fucking pop when he won that title and getting paraded around and just winning that championship, and I just think that was a cool moment.
One of the biggest mistakes WCW made, mate.
Yeah, all those people that changed the channel, they never fucking came back. That was it. That was the end of the run, right? End of the 60s.
It goes back to Taker as
83
well.
weeks.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Mankind was, other than Kane, I would probably say Mankind was Undertaker's greatest opponent, greatest feud.
Yeah, gotta be.
Boiler Room Brawl was fucking just...
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Some mad shit. Big guy. A lot bigger than you'd think.
Yep.
Easily 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
Bring him in. It's a famous story about Mick Foley. Back in Jim Ross, head of talent relations at the time, pushing for Mick Foley for ages and ages and ages. We need to bring in Cactus. Vince McMahon said, okay, we'll bring him in. The only reason I'm doing it is because I want you to know what it feels like to get your heart broken by a talent. That's what Vince McMahon said to Jim Ross when he agreed to sign off on Mick Foley. There you go.
Oh.
He was good, but he wasn't that fucking good, old Vince, was he, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great shit.
Damn.
Cool.
Nice.
Love that. Brilliant.
So there we have honourable mentions. Mick Foley, a surefire, and me with the Iron Sheik, a left field choice. If you agree
that was so far. That was the most surprising.
You didn't see it coming, did you?
No. That was a swerve. That was a swerve, bro. That was a swerve, bro.
That's what makes it interesting, right? As long as you can justify it,
right.
That's why it's on the list. Okay, so we're down.
Fuck it.
We're down to the final one, and I'd be very surprised if we're not number one, if we're not the same here. But
your fucking Shawn Michaels not being on there, I can imagine somebody like fucking, I don't know, Gilbert being on here for you at number one. I've got no fucking idea.
Whose go is it? Is it mine, yours?
Should we do 3, 2, 1 and say it at the same time?
Right.
Because I think we're going to be there or thereabouts, right?
It's got
but if it's not, this is going to be fucking
really awkward. Right, okay. 3. So what are we doing? Are we doing 3, 2, 1 then reveal, or 3, 2 and then reveal in 1?
3, 2, 1 reveal.
Okay. 3, 2, 1 Stone Cold.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah. It had to be, right?
Yeah, man. There isn't really anybody else. Surely to God.
No one it could have
Can't be anyone. I don't think you can argue about this one. I think that people might, if they get involved in the old conversation on YouTube or whatever, wherever, I really don't think you can argue about this at all.
Don't get me wrong. I think 1 and 2 is very, very close. I think you
They're
could make
close in
arguments.
similar ways.
Yeah, you can make arguments
Well,
for Hogan being number 1, but I think just for the period
yeah,
that needed another generational superstar, Austin
yes,
was it. And, again, we've talked about it before with Triple H in terms of, if he'd won King of the Ring, there would never have been, or we don't think there would have been an Austin 316. It's
very,
like
very, very different story, right?
totally different
Very
story.
different story.
Um,
They say like the cream would rise to the top or whatever, or the best will always find a way, and whatever. You know what I mean? But there wasn't really much time left for his run for a start, was there? You know what I mean? In terms of how long he was actually about, you got to think this guy was on top for the maximum 4 years, maximum.
yeah.
To have that much of an impact on the business in that short of a period of time is insane. It's insane. The pay-per-view buys, the sellouts, the house shows, the fucking TV ratings, the merchandise. Used to get a percentage of the 316 t-shirts or whatever. He was getting $3 million a quarter in merchandise sales. That's how much money the WWE was making on his merch. He was getting a percentage of it, and he was still making $3 million $1 million a month. It's just incredible. This guy was breaking record after record after record. He was probably the big. I would probably hazard a guess as to say that he was on top in the biggest wrestling boom period ever.
Yeah.
In terms of the mainstream international fan base. You could say that the sort of the territory that sort of maybe late 70s to early 80s in terms of America, like the TV ratings with like Memphis and all that sort of stuff, whatever, they're getting like 30 shares on the TV. But that wasn't worldwide. You'd speak to somebody in England and they wouldn't know who Jerry Lawler was, whatever. You could speak to somebody in the middle of the desert in Libya and they'd be wearing a fucking 316 t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, this guy he was on top in the biggest boom period in wrestling.
It's
just
insane,
the guy.
right?
And he talked himself there. He worked himself there. The best thing that ever happened was him to get released from WCW the way that he did.
Yep.
That lit the fire underneath him, gave him that in streak, gave him that kick up the arse to be the Stone Cold character. The Stone Cold started in ECW, not in WWE.
Yep.
That promo, I don't know if you've seen it. You would have had the people out there that might not have seen it. Go out and look for that promo, that Steve Austin promo in WCW. He's just sat there getting pissed off at the world. Like, that was Stone Cold then. That was the genesis of that character, the genesis of that persona. Well, it was him, really. It was real. It was real most of the time. And the guy was just insane. You mentioned earlier on those 3 matches with The Rock, whether he had the title or he was winning the title or whatever. At 15, 17, 19, that trilogy of matches at WrestleMania. Some of the feuds that he had with these guys, like, just an incredible worker, unbelievable talker, just amazing. Yeah. All the metrics, if you look at the metrics, he's going to be there or thereabouts with every single one. Just insane person.
I suppose you've got to say, right, and I love Stone Cold, it's just generationally just fucking insane. But, for him, he was the perfect, we'll call him a babyface, to Mr. McMahon heel. I think those two together was just gold. Like, just
A man and
insane.
Joker, right?
Yep.
I mentioned that. I've said that a couple of times. It's a reference that I like to use quite a lot, like an analogy that I use quite a lot. Like, it's true. You could not necessarily have one without the other. You definitely couldn't have had Mr. McMahon without Stone Cold.
Nah.
Definitely not. It was, that feud, Royal Rumble, just fighting around the fucking arena and dropping back into the Royal Rumble and stuff, just insane. Yeah.
I mean, you think there's so many Austin moments, right? The beer truck, the Tyson, the Mr. McMahon getting slapped over the head with a bedpan. It's just
The first stunner.
The first stunner, horrendous stunner by
First
the way.
stunner on, yeah, probably
Even the last
not
one.
far off as bad as the last one. Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, so just Austin. I think anybody that doesn't have him number one or at least number two doesn't really know what they're talking about, in my opinion. But that's just.
I agree. If somebody wants to come along and argue this to the fact why he should be number one, you crack on. We'll listen, whatever. But I thought we would be really close with probably the top couple on here. It kind of says a lot about the business, really. If Hulk and Stone Cold are not in that sort of top level conversation for champions, so we will reiterate. Like I might need to reiterate it on behalf of John, the fact he's got Kurt Angle in here. This is the top 10 WWE, WWF champions, not the top 10 wrestlers of all time, because this list would be very, very different. Yeah, but yeah, Stone Cold, man. The guy was just, like everything good about wrestling. He transcended into that everyman situation as well. Yeah. This is what makes good champions, is those people who fall into that category of the everyday person, that lapsed fan or that non-fan, that person who sits there and watches the telly and goes, who is this guy? Like, what is he doing? Like he's just punched his boss in the face and just dropped him on his head. Like, whoa, this guy's he's drinking a beer. What the fuck? I want to be this guy. Like that. The people who didn't know wrestling. He's doing what I've always wanted to do. Walk into work, tell my boss that I fucking hate him, kick him in the tits, and then go and drink a beer. Like, what more do you need, right? What more do you need?
And that's the bottom line, because Mark out of 10 said so. I think Hoxie,
shit, brother.
Awesome first episode. I think it's
yes.
As I say, we don't have an email or a YouTube channel set up yet. It will be done, and probably when we finish up this, there'll be a little snippet. I'll come on and I'll tell you what the email address, etc., is once I get it sorted. But thanks to everybody that's came along and watched. If you are on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, sub to the channel, turn on notifications to find out when we next upload our next podcast. If you're listening on any of other like podcast thing, do something that turns on notifications. We don't know.
Drop a 5-star review. You can follow on Spotify. Stick it in your little followed section. Stick a star by it. Give it a 5-star, whatever. Just also, if you're on socials, you can always just go and share it to your friends and say, "Have a listen to these guys chat rubbish about wrestling for a couple of hours." They know what they're on about. Maybe, potentially. If not, come along and argue with us.
When we get our socials set up, what I want you to do as well is let us know whose list do you agree with more. Do you agree with Shields or do you agree with Hoxie?
It's obviously going to be mine, because Shawn Michaels is on mine and Kurt Angle's on yours.
Yeah, but you've also got Eddie Guerrero on yours. It's like, fuck right off. It's like, there's no shot. And honestly, my honourable mention is so left field, it'll shock people and they'll go, do I know something? He knows what he's talking about. He's fucking legend. Okay, so that's the end of the first episode. Next episode is, you think this is going to cause arguments? Wait until episode 2. We are going to talk about the top 10 overrated superstars in the business. Now, I know my number one, and Hoxie knows my number one. There's going to be a fight.
We should just skip that, and it'll probably be 2 hours of us talking about number one, because I can't be dealing with it. I'm not happy with this at all already. It's crazy.
If this has intrigued you, make sure you come on to the next one.
Getting all sweaty and angry already. I've not even got there yet. I am.
So from me, Shields, have a very nice evening. Hoxie, over to you.
From me, Hoxie, have a nice evening or morning or afternoon. Have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Catch you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
As promised, guys, the email address has been set up. If you want to comment on mine or Hoxie's list, then email us. Also, you can give us ideas of what next on Mark out of 10. Make sure you email us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com. That's wrestlemark1010 at gmail.com. We're also now live on YouTube, Mark out of 10. Make sure you sub to the channel, turn on notifications, and obviously like every podcast when it comes out. Thanks very much for listening again, and I'll catch you in the next one.